Heads of states and government of the Southern African Development Community (SADC) have resolved to multiply efforts to counter insecurity and promote regional integration among member states. They took the resolution at the just ended 42nd summit in Kinshasa this Thursday, August 18, 2022. Plus, the transitional government of Mali has demanded the UN Security Council for an emergency meeting to stop what they describe as an act of aggression by France in the form of violations of its sovereignty, support for jihadist groups, and spying. Those are my big stories of tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Stand by for development of this and more in a moment. Thanks for joining us. I am Tekewana at the anchor and welcoming you all on the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on For You Television. We begin this day from Mali, where Mali's transitional government has accused French forces of spying and aiding jihadist terrorist groups in the country, thus launches a call for the United Nations Security Council for an emergency meeting. As you tell us more, Manzi.
The ruling government in Mali is accusing French forces of spying and supporting jihadist terrorists in the country. Mali's transitional government has equally demanded an urgent Security Council meeting from the UN in a bid to stop what it describes as acts of aggression by France in the form of violation of its sovereignty, support for jihadist groups, and spying. This development was announced to press men and women earlier this week by Mali's Ministry of Foreign Affairs to the Chinese presidency of the Security Council. The letter is dated August 15th, the date of the departure of the last French soldier in Mali after 9 years of engagement against the jihadists. According to the text, Malian authorities have several pieces of evidence that the flagrant violations of Malian airspace were used by France to collect information for terrorist groups operating in the Sahel and to drop arms and ammunition to them. The text adds that these activities are considered as espionage and attempts to intimidate, and Mali reserves the right to use self-defense if French actions persist in accordance with the UN Charter. The military government in place took over power in 2020 and has since turned away from France and its allies to Russia.
A United Nations judge has announced this Thursday that Félicien Kabuga, the alleged financier of the 1994 genocide in Rwanda, will be tried come September 29, 2022 in The Hague. As you tell us more, Moni Manuel.
Félicien Kabuga, the alleged financier of the 1994 Tutsi genocide in Rwanda, will be tried from September 29 in The Hague, where he will face charges of genocide and crimes against humanity, as announced by the United Nations judge on Thursday. The chamber orders the trial in its branch in The Hague, with the opening statements from September 29 and the first depositions from October the 5th, as Judge Lane Bonomi of the Mechanisms for International Criminal Tribunal said, in charge of completing the work of the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. Kabuga, once one of Rwanda's richest men, will face 7 criminal charges, including committing genocide and crimes against humanity. He was the first indicted by the former UN tribunals for war crimes in Rwanda in November 1997. Initially, the French Court of Appeal ruled that Kabuga be transferred to Arusha. The 87-year-old evaded arrest for more than 2 decades, living on the outskirts of Paris under a false name. He was finally arrested in the French capital in May 2020. The octogenarian's trial was initially announced for the end of 2021, but it did not hold as the health of the former businessman, who has been at odds with his lawyer for over a year, became a thorn in the side of bringing him to justice.
We stay with you, Moni Manuel, but this time around from Rwanda, we go over to Angola, where you are going to be telling us that a Spanish court has ruled that the body of former Angolan President José Eduardo dos Santos, who died last month in Barcelona, northeast Spain, should be handed over to his widow for repatriation and burial in Angola. What has been the delay, or what has delayed the cause for his burial is the content of this report proposed to us by Moni Manuel.
The fate of the former head of state's remains has been at the center of a legal battle between his widow Ana Paula Cristavao dos Santos and one of his daughters, Welvicia Chize dos Santos, 44, since his death on July 8, especially in view of the August 24th elections in Angola. However, the lawyer of Chize dos Santos immediately announced in a statement that her client would appeal his court's decision. The court that ruled was, according to her, not competent enough. The appeal will be filed shortly before the same court that made the decision in favor of the widow of the former president. In its ruling, dated Tuesday, the Superior Court of Justice of Catalonia said it had received the results of the autopsy performed on the remains of José Eduardo dos Santos on the same day and said it had confirmed that it was a natural death due to chronic cardiorespiratory failure. To justify its decision to give the body to his last wife, the court emphasized that the expenses of housing of the deceased were paid by the Angolan government and that he had received visits from Angolan officials while he was in Barcelona. José Eduardo dos Santos, who led Angola without sharing from 1979 to 2017, died at the age of 79 in a Barcelona clinic where he was hospitalized after a cardiac arrest on June 23rd. His placement in intensive care had revealed very strong tensions within the family between his last wife, Ana Paula, a former air hostess, 18 years his junior, and Chize dos Santos, 44 years old, born from the first marriage of the former president. This last one had thus launched a complaint in Spain a few days before the death of her father for attempted homicide. She accused her father's personal doctor and his last wife of being responsible for the deterioration of his health. Judging the death suspicious, she had then obtained from the justice that an autopsy be performed. Since their separation in 2017 and until last April, Ana Paula had not visited her husband in Barcelona, had also assured Chize dos Santos in a statement issued by his lawyers. She was especially opposed to the return of the remains of her father in Angola, saying he wanted to be buried in privacy in Spain where he lived since 2019 and not in his country, with a national funeral that could favor the current government of President João Lourenço in the election of August 24th, according to a statement from his lawyers.
From Angola, we go over to Ethiopia, where we are told that in the Tigray region in Ethiopia, insecurity continues to make life unbearable, as we are told that humanitarian crisis is at its peak, to an extent that the director of the World Health Organization has described the crisis in the Tigray region in Ethiopia as the worst disaster on earth due to racism, an allegation which has not been gladly received by Ethiopian officials, describing it as unethical. As you tell us, Jigs Nabise.
The World Health Organization's Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has proposed racism as a possible cause for the lack of international attention being paid to the plight of civilians in Ethiopia's war-shattered Tigray region. Speaking on a virtual media briefing on Wednesday, August 17, he called the Tigrayan conflict the worst humanitarian crisis in the world, with 6 million people unable to access basic services, thereby questioning why the situation is not given the same attention as the Ukraine conflict.
Earth's 6 million people are sealed off. Nowhere. From basic services, from their own money, from telecom, from food, from medicine.
Maybe the reason is the color of the skin of the people, Tedros, who hails from Tigray, stated.
I can tell you that the humanitarian crisis in Tigray is more than Ukraine, without any exaggeration. And I said it many months ago, maybe the reason is the color of the skin of the people in Tigray.
Earlier this year, at a briefing, the health organization's boss had questioned whether black and white lives in emergencies worldwide are given equal attention. WHO Emergencies Director Mike Ryan has equally voiced out his concerns regarding the apparent shortage of concern about the drought and famine unfolding in the Horn of Africa and the ensuing health crisis. More to that, no one seems to care about what's happening in the Horn of Africa, reiterated Ryan, speaking at a virtual media briefing. Amidst the deepening crisis, the WHO has called for $123.7 billion to tackle the health problems resulting from grain malnutrition in the region, where around 2 million people live and millions are struggling to survive.
Now over to Libya, where illegal immigration from Africa to Europe continues to raise eyebrows despite the ugly stories victims do propagate about their experiences. Humanitarian organizations have described Libya as a hell to illegal immigrants. As our student journalist on internship, Iwane Epole, tells us more.
The life of migrants who live from the west through the Libyan coast is far from being a calm ocean, with the violence that plagues the country. A migrant who fled Libya says that last year people were being killed by the Libyan Coast Guard. About 7 to 8 Africans lost their lives. In Zuwara, 2 Syrian women were killed, and such is the fate of any other person who tries to bring these Coast Guards to their senses. These unfortunate people live a real ordeal as degrading treatments are inflicted on them, notably rape, killing, amongst many others.
The German government cannot currently justify the training of the Libyan Coast Guard by German soldiers in view of the repeated unacceptable behavior by individual units of the Libyan Coast Guard toward refugees and migrants, and also toward non-governmental organizations.
The Coast Guard is not spared, according to what migrants say. Report from the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights says that more than 70,000 asylum seekers have crossed the Mediterranean to reach Europe in 2022. But unfortunately, more than 900 have died or have gone missing in this attempt.
Let's leave Libya and go over to Algeria, where we are told that at least 38 people have died and several dozens injured in a forest fire that occurred Wednesday, August 17, 2022 in the northern part of Algeria. A report holds it that it is the deadliest in the country's modern history. Once more, Iwane Epole.
14 divisions in North Algeria were hit by forest fires on Wednesday, killing 38 persons and leaving injured several. About 50 people were hospitalized in El Taf, a city of about 100,000 inhabitants, and over 350 families fled their homes in South Aras. Since the beginning of August, about 106 fires have broken out in the North African country, destroying over 800 hectares of the country's forest. It should be noted that Algeria, the largest African country, has only 4.1 million hectares of forest with a scanty reforestation rate of 1.76%. More to that, the north of the country is affected by forest fires each year, but this phenomenon is accentuated from year to year under the effect of climate change. The summer of 2021 was the most deadly, and at least 90 people died in forest fires that severely damaged the north, where more than 100,000 hectares of land went up in smoke.
Let's get back to one of our lead story where we told you that heads of state and government of the Southern African Development Community, SADC, have resolved to multiply effort to counter insecurity and promote regional integration among member states. They took the resolution at the end of the 42nd summit in Kinshasa this Thursday, August 18, 2022. As you tell us, Mwanzi.
Leaders of the Southern African Community Development SADC are meeting in Kinshasa for the 42nd summit. Trade is one of the priorities the leaders are expected to review as the progress made towards achieving closer integration and deepening regional trade will be a point of focus.
There is no one outside Africa who is coming to build Africa the way we want it to be built. Not the Americans, not the Europeans, not the Asians. They must give us a road here They may give us a road here and there, a stadium here or two, a few $1 million that are nothing more than pocket change to them, and that are nothing compared to the amounts they give each other as Westerners or Easterners.
The summit will be held under the theme Promoting Industrialization through Agro-Industry, Mineral Resource Enrichment and Regional Value Chains for Inclusive and Resilient Economic Growth.
I will be active in implementing programs to develop infrastructure and services in the region that are directly linked to our main strategies to stimulate economic integration and eradicate poverty in the SADC region.
The summit comes at a time when its host country, the Democratic Republic of Congo, is facing security threats in its eastern regions. Before fellow leaders, President Felix Tshisekedi denounced the cowardly and barbaric aggression against his country by Rwanda. Another member of the bloc, Mozambique, is also dealing with the military insurgency in its northern provinces. Nevertheless, a regional force known as SAMIM, alongside forces from Rwanda, has managed to win back territory from the Islamic State-linked rebels. Some SADC member states such as Malawi and Tanzania are troop contributors to the UN's Rapid Intervention Brigade under MONUSCO. At the end of the summit, Congo will take over the bloc's rotating presidency from Malawi.
Illegal importation of contraband goods between Cameroon and Nigeria has remained a thorn on the flesh of officials of both nations. Recently, custom officials intercepted 100 tons of fertilizers, tramadol, and rice which were about to be smuggled into Cameroon. Photo has the rest of that story.
Smugglers have been intercepted as they attempted to bring undeclared goods into Cameroon from neighboring Nigeria. They found on their way the Nigerian Customs Service, NCA's Adamawa Taraba Area Command. At least 234.5 tons of goods detailed in 69 seizures along the Nigeria-Cameroon border were made with a DPV cleared value of 232.11 million naira between January and June 2022. According to Custom Officer Adeboyega Ganiyu, in charge of command, the service had intensified patrol and campaign activities to combat smuggling in the country. He said service personnel had seized 4,649 bags of fertilizer and other items at the entry and exit points of the Nigerian borders with Cameroon. According to reports, the officer listed other items to include 22 vehicles, 1,500 sachets of tramadol tablets, 392 sachets of foreign rice, and 70 sachets of unpure foreign rice. Ganiyu attributed the victory to synergy with sister security agency and support from members of the general public. The NCS, he said, that declares zero tolerance for any acts that could undermine the economic power of the country.
Let's stay in Cameroon, where the Douala City Council and the United Bank for Africa UBA have renewed their developmental commitment of the city of Douala through the signing of a loan agreement to the tune of 7 billion francs. For us to better comprehend the content of the new loan agreement, let's follow this report. The developmental machinery of the Douala City Council continues grinding steadily thanks to institutions of goodwill like the United Bank for Africa UBA. It justifies the signing of this second public-private partnership destined to beef up road projects within the city of Douala to the tune of 7 billion francs CFA with a focus on equipment acquisition.
The funds being provided are going towards the acquisition of assets, machines, tractors, caterpillars that will also help to do the construction or road maintenance as the case may be. What is also done is that all the suppliers of this equipment are known, and I think each one qualified through a normal official public tender before being selected to be a supplier of the equipment. And all the payments will be made from the bank direct to the supplier. It's not, the money is not put at the liberty of the council to so use the way it wants. So the money goes direct, all of it, direct to the suppliers.
While addressing his guests, the Douala City Mayor, Dr. Rojimba Sandine, expressed gratitude to the UBA family for their unflinching support to accompany the council realize its JAM project in transforming the city to an El Dorado. The private sector being the engine of growth in every economy, it is therefore a well-calculated decision and choice made by the Pan-African Bank to accompany the Douala City Council in its infrastructural project execution.
And this one now being 6.25. Of course, as the volume and amount of the loan is increasing, you also have to reduce the interest rate. That is one. Two, after the first engagement, as we're going to the second engagement, the manner in which the council handled the first engagement gave us confidence and faith and belief that they can handle it. That means the risk we envisaged earlier dropped. Our risk perception of the council dropped. And in banking and finance, you know that their risk drops, at least the interest you charge also should drop. Okay? And we also know that it's long term. When you're supporting government, you also need to make the cost lower. Because this is a social program, whether you like it or not. Of course, it will come across as finance, but it's also a social program for the people of Cameroon and the people of Douala.
However, the set marriage between the UBA Bank and the Douala City Council is hoped to grow from leaps and bounds to help transform the economic hub of Cameroon, reflect its true image in Central Africa. That last report there brings us to the end of today's 6 p.m. primetime newscast on For You Television. On behalf of the entire team, we want to thank you all immensely for your kind attention. God willing, we shall be back here same time tomorrow. Until then, goodbye from Cotonou, Benin, Abidjan, Ivory Coast. God bless Motherland Africa. Bye-bye.